They called her the janitor. But in a courtroom where a $6 billion lawsuit was at stake, she was the one who brought the entire legal system to silence. Before the truth is revealed, hit like and subscribe to stand with those who dare to step out of the shadows. The U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York was flooded with lights and tension that morning. In courtroom 12B, the trial between Orion Biotech, one of America's leading biotech firms, and Takasaka Holdings, a Japanese conglomerate holding partial patent rights, was entering its fourth day. In the back rows, the press packed in tightly. Cameras were allowed for exactly the first 3 minutes, but every glance, every sigh was being recorded by 1,000 invisible lenses. Among those whom no one paid attention to, there was one figure quietly pushing a janitorial cart down the hallway toward the courtroom. Amara Green, a small-framed black woman in a dark blue uniform, her hair neatly tied back, rubber soles squeaking softly on the cold marble floor. She passed through this place every night, cleaning the space where power and ethics clashed like a stage performance. No one knew the woman kneeling to scrub the floors had once graduated from Howard Law School, had once interned at the Tokyo Legal Institute, and had once been erased from the profession after filing an internal lawsuit, in which she was the plaintiff. Today's case wasn't just about biotechnology. It was a hidden battle about truth, power, and who gets to have their name on a $6 billion idea. Amara had heard the entire process over the past few days. As she pushed her cart through the halls, wiped down the judge's bench, replaced trash bags after each session. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but she understood Japanese. And what left her frozen yesterday was a quiet exchange between the American attorneys. That translation's good enough. They won't notice. Amara didn't need to turn to recognize that voice. Robert Vale, Orion's lead attorney. The same man who had once been her supervisor in Tokyo. The man who had stolen her research and cast her into the shadows with vicious rumors and a termination letter citing ethical misconduct. She never imagined she would see him again, let alone watch him argue over a patent whose first draft she had written while still a grad student. That morning, Amara stood in the hallway, mop in hand, eyes peering through the glass of courtroom 12B. The Japanese legal team began protesting fiercely over an unclear translation of Clause 7.4, the one that dictated production rights and revenue sharing. The interpreter stumbled. Takasaka's side began pulling back. Judge Monroe called for a recess. Amara knew, if no one spoke up, a legal crime would unfold in broad daylight. She looked down at her dusty shoes, then at the hallway mirror. The woman in the glass was no longer a law student, not a researcher, not someone cast out of her field. She was Amara Green, and today, if no one else would speak the truth, she would. That night, the courthouse closed early. Winter wind swept across the gray stone steps, scattering a few loose notes someone had left behind. In the long hallway leading to courtroom 12B, only Amara remained, crouched down, scrubbing the floor, her eyes glancing up at the wall clock every 10 minutes. But tonight was not like every other night. She wasn't working. She was investigating. In the basement, where records of ongoing cases were stored, there was a small room that only internal staff had access to. Amara, with her nameless blue staff badge, had entered that room many times unnoticed. Not because she was sneaky, but because no one really saw her. The document she needed was the original Japanese language version of the 2014 tech licensing agreement between Orion and Takasaka, where Clause 7.4 had first been written. And then she found it, inside a dusty cardboard box with a label misspelled. The scanned copy in the system had been replaced by a vague English translation, conveniently crafted by Orion's own legal team. Amara looked at the original. Her eyes began to well up. Decision-making rights on joint production cannot be exercised unilaterally without written consent from both parties. But the official English translation in the legal files simply read, "Each party shall have discretion over production if not objected to." A linguistic ambush, a deliberate mistranslation, a blatant betrayal. Amara took photos of the original, emailing them to her private account. Her heart pounded as if she had just stolen a state secret. As she stepped out of the archive room, she heard laughter echoing down the hallway. It was Vale, Robert Vale, on the phone. "Don't worry. Even if they back out, we still win. No one remembers the side agreement, and their interpreter is green." She ducked behind a decorative screen. Rage surged in her chest like wildfire. Not because he had destroyed her career, that damage was done, but because now he was about to destroy the truth. That night, back in her small Bronx apartment, Amara opened her laptop and printed the accurate translation from the original file. She laid it beside a pile of old documents, her law degree, her termination letter from the Tokyo Legal Institute, and the plagiarism report she once submitted, only for it to be buried in silence. She knew, when she walked into the courtroom tomorrow, she'd have no title, no attorney, no protection. But she had the truth. And sometimes, one person holding on to the truth is enough to shake an entire system. She shut her laptop and closed her eyes. In her mind appeared the faces of cleaning women she'd met, each one carrying dreams trapped in a rusty cart. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "they'll see me." The next morning, courtroom 12B was packed to capacity. The press was present in greater numbers than ever. Tension gripped the air as both Orion and Takasaka entered the decisive hearing phase. Judge Monroe's bench towered above, her sharp gaze cutting into each person like a chisel. The plaintiff, Orion Biotech, was led by Robert Vale. The defendant, Takasaka Holdings, was represented by Mr. Kondo, a seasoned Japanese attorney, quietly holding the English translation of the contract with a look of deep disappointment. The interpreter stammered as Mr. Kondo began to object. "We cannot accept this clause. The interpretation has been altered. It does not reflect the original 2014 document." Vale raised an eyebrow and shrugged. "If Takasaka doesn't understand the document they signed, I'm afraid that's their responsibility, not Orion's." Judge Monroe struck her gavel. "I need concrete evidence, not conjecture. Otherwise, this case will proceed based on the documents already submitted." A soft voice echoed from the back of the room. "Your Honor, may I speak?" Everyone turned. It was a petite black woman in a dark blue janitor's uniform, standing quietly near the courtroom doors, clutching a stack of documents in her hands. Vale scowled and whispered to his assistant, "Who let the cleaning staff in during a hearing?" Judge Monroe fixed her cold gaze on Amara. "What's your name, and why are you interrupting this session?" Amara stepped forward, her hands slightly trembling, but her voice steady. "Amara Green. I've worked here for nearly 2 years. I'm not a lawyer, but I have the original Japanese copy of Clause 7.4 from 2014, along with an accurate translation. The clause is being misinterpreted, and if the court isn't made aware of the truth, one party will be unjustly ruled against due to manipulated language." A wave of murmurs swept through the courtroom. Vale shot to his feet. "Objection. This woman has no legal standing and is not on the witness list." "Silence." Judge Monroe snapped. "Ms. Green, do you speak Japanese?" Amara nodded. "I studied at the Tokyo Legal Institute. I also interned on the original patent project before I was dismissed for reporting misconduct." Judge Monroe narrowed her eyes, thinking carefully. "And can you prove that?" Amara stepped to the evidence table, placing down 2 documents, one in Japanese with an official stamp, the other a precise translation. "Page 14, paragraph 2, she said, pointing to the text. "The original clearly states, 'No party shall unilaterally make production decisions without written consent from the other.'" Vale went pale. The entire room fell silent. And then Mr. Kondo, the Japanese attorney, rose to his feet and slowly nodded. "She's right." The court recessed for 30 minutes. The hallway was taut with tension, like a tightened wire. Reporters scattered to make calls, fire off emails, and post live updates. The phrase janitor interrupted court began trending on Twitter, and the name Amara Green was hurriedly typed into search bars at news outlets around the world. Inside the courtroom, Vale rushed toward Judge Monroe's chambers, but she raised a hand to stop him. "Mr. Vale," she said calmly, her voice low, "I'm reviewing the original documents submitted by Ms. Green. If what she claims is true, this isn't just an intellectual property dispute. This is evidence suppression." Vale clenched his jaw. Who was she to interfere in legal proceedings? The judge stared him down, her eyes cutting through his expensive suit like a blade. Maybe the real disgrace isn't that she spoke up, but that an entire system kept her cleaning trash instead of sitting at the counsel's table. Elsewhere in the room, Amara sat alone, holding a plastic cup of water, her gaze drifting quietly into the distance. Suddenly, Mr. Kondo approached and bowed in traditional Japanese form. "Ms. Green," he said in Japanese, "I remember you. Tokyo, fall of 2013. You translated documents for the Takasaka board. You were Mr. Vale's intern then." Amara nodded, emotions stirring inside her. "I remember too. I wrote the first draft of the Gen 7 project." Mr. Kondo exhaled deeply. "I always wondered why you disappeared." "Because I reported Mr. Vale for plagiarism, and I was smeared," Amara replied evenly. "My recommendation letters were withdrawn. I lost my PhD scholarship, and so I became the janitor." Mr. Kondo looked at her for a long time. "And today you stood up. Alone. Not completely alone," she smiled faintly. "I carry 10 years of silence on behalf of everyone like me. The ones who wiped down conference tables but were never invited to sit at them." When court resumed, Judge Monroe entered with a grave expression. After reviewing the original documents and translations provided by Ms. Green, she announced, "The court finds sufficient grounds to suspect deliberate misrepresentation of patent content. This trial is hereby suspended pending a formal ethics investigation into the plaintiff, Orion Biotech." A wave of murmurs rippled across the courtroom. And to Ms. Amara Green, the judge continued slowly, "The court acknowledges your contribution in uncovering the truth. If you are willing, I'd like to add you to the list of expert witnesses. As a former contributor to the Gen 7 project." Vale collapsed into his chair, his face drained of color. Meanwhile, Amara took a deep breath. After years of being buried beneath the system, she had finally been seen. Less than 24 hours after the interrupted trial, the name Amara Green dominated social media and front-page headlines. "Janitor overturns $6 billion lawsuit," CNN. "The invisible woman who exposed the legal industry's lie," The Guardian. Was Amara Green a legal prodigy silenced for speaking the truth? The New York Times. In a small apartment in the Bronx, her mother, Elaine Green, sat frozen in front of the television. "Is that my daughter?" she whispered, her hand trembling around a ceramic mug. Beside her, Amara's younger sister sobbed, eyes swollen red. They had witnessed Amara collapse after the Tokyo ordeal. Nights spent filling out job applications, mornings cleaning skyscraper windows, and the cold rejection letters from firms that never looked beyond her resume. And now, all those wounds were being laid bare for millions to see. At the federal courthouse, an emergency hearing was convened. This time, it wasn't about Orion or Takasaka. It was about the truth behind Amara Green's erased name from the Gen 7 patent system. Judge Monroe laid a stack of documents in front of Robert Vale, collected by the court's investigation team. The original Gen 7 design, saved on Orion's internal system in March 2013. Primary author, Green A. Vale said nothing. An internal memo from you to the patent board dated May 2013, recommending the removal of Green's name due to lack of significant contribution. Still silence. His lips pressed tight. A rejection letter for Green's PhD scholarship, signed by you, despite her being top-ranked among academic nominees. Judge Monroe paused, then stared straight into his eyes. You destroyed a woman's career because she dared to expose you. And today, she saved this entire trial from a wrongful verdict. Vale exhaled, lowering his head for the first time. I did it to protect Orion's reputation. I never thought she would come back. She didn't come back, the judge replied. She never left. You just never saw her. At the witness stand, Amara sat upright. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. Only her eyes spoke, calm, cold, unwavering. The eyes of someone who had endured too much to need anyone's forgiveness. A few hours later, Orion issued a press release offering an out-of-court settlement. They agreed to reinstate Amara Green's name as lead co-inventor, provide financial compensation, and fund graduate scholarships for any student ousted from the field due to academic discrimination. That night, Amara sat by her apartment window, gazing at the glittering city lights. Her phone rang nonstop. Reporters, universities, law firms. She let out a quiet laugh. Business cards, recognition, prestige, they had finally arrived. But the only thing that felt real was the trust in herself that had never died. Tomorrow, she would return to the courthouse, not to scrub the floor, but to sign the papers reclaiming what was hers. 1 week later, Amara Green walked into courtroom 12B. No more blue uniform. No more mop in hand. Today, she wore a simple black suit carrying a leather briefcase and was invited to sit at the counsel's table, right beside Takasaka, Holdings' legal advisor. Judge Monroe offered a faint smile upon seeing her. "Ms. Green," she said, "I trust this time you're here in the role you were always meant to have." Orion signed the settlement. The court formally recognized her as a legitimate co-inventor. The press recorded the moment in silence. No flashes, no shouting, just a solemn hush, like a eulogy for justice long ignored. As people filed out, a young janitor approached Amara and said softly, "I used to see you cleaning here. I'll never forget." Amara placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "And one day, you'll be standing here too." She turned, walking back toward the hearing table. This time, her name was already engraved on the placard. What did you think of Amara's journey? Leave a comment below. Which moment surprised you the most? Thank you for watching this story.